season began a month ago. Why wait any longer to speculate on how it will end? We will look into our crystal ball and predict Class AA section finalists with hockey reporter Sydney Wolf. Benilde-St Margaret senior forward Kendall Hassler kills off our extra tough questions in this week's PK player profile. And of course, Winny Brodt Brown breaks down the key games from the week that was and previews the week ahead, which is chock full of fantastic matchups. Episode 5, Season 1 of the Girls High School Hockey Report podcast starts right now. Well, Thanksgiving is over, but Christmas, I would say, is coming way early if you're a girls' high school hockey fan. This week's lineup of games is, I would say, incredible. Saturday alone, listen to this: Edina at Minnetonka, Hill Murray at Holy Family, Centennial Spring Lake Park at Andover, Mound West Tonka Southwest Christian at Dodge County, War Road at Champlain Park, Coon Rapids, and Winnie. Have you peeked at this schedule? It is unbelievable this week alone.
Yeah, it's just looking at it, and it's one of those things where it's probably one of the best weeks of high school girls hockey for matchups and just let alone rivalries. It's kind of like the northern and southern rivalries and just private school rivalries. So it's going to be fun week to watch.
Yeah, I wish they would do, like, the high school league should flex these games, right? You know, like they do in the pros. They flex,
absolutely.
They can change them up, I know, but it's going to be fun.
I mean, these are the games that, are pretty much the best games probably until section finals.
Yep. And we're going to preview section finals later in the podcast with Sydney Wolf. But let's talk about some of the games that happened over the last week, over Thanksgiving. The schedule was a little bit lighter because of the holiday, but there were definitely some good matchups. The best one, we talked about it last week, Edina at Hill Murray. Great atmosphere at Polar Arena in North St. Paul. That was last Tuesday, packed. We had college coaches on hand. Game was 0-0 after the first. Hill Murray had a couple of really grade A chances in the first, couldn't do it. 6 goals are scored in the second period, 3 apiece, and then we go to the third period. And I think Edina sort of out-hustled Hill Murray in the third period, went on to win 6-3 with an empty netter. But it was Hill Murray's first test of the season, I would say, really tough test, and there's definitely room for improvement. What are your thoughts on Edina defeating Hill Murray in this first season matchup?
Yeah, we had talked about in the first couple episodes about Edina and a lot about their defense, and they have a unbelievable defense and goaltending, but they also have unbelievable offense. And I think this is where is one of those games with Audrey Davis and Lorelai Nelson and Kate McCoy coming, ready to play and putting the puck away, which is what their team needs, because they have really good team defense, as we know, as we've seen the scores that they've played some of these earlier matchups. And then they also have Whit Horton, too, who's also another kid that can score. So now we've seen that Edina has, that complete package, and they showed it in that game versus Hill, it sounds like. Yep,
and it sort of, the plot thickens right at the top of this the AA class when you think about Andover beats Edina, Edina then beats Hill, Tonka's, Tonka beats Andover, so it's who's who and the parity, and so it's great for the game.
Yeah, which is great for high school girls hockey, where it's, I think, a year that where you can see where anyone can beat anyone on any given night, which makes it really fun for the fans and to be able to follow the high school game, because it is so close and anyone can beat anyone.
Let's talk about a couple of close games. Maple Grove loses 2 close ones this past week. Minnetonka beats them 3-2 on Tuesday. Then they go to Champlain Park, Coon Rapids, and lose 4-3 in overtime on Saturday. Maple Grove, I still scratch my head. I'm still trying to figure them out a little bit and just where they fit. I did watch most of that, the game against Champlain Park, Coon Rapids. But again, it's just more parity.
Yeah, and it's one of those things that if you look at those 2 games, they're super close games, only losing by a goal. So that could be 1 bounce. It could be, 1 or 2 play difference. And Champlain Coon Rapids has had a couple of tough games, and they needed to get that win too. So it depends on when you get each opponent on any given night.
Just want to touch on Rosemont defeated Egan 6-0. Sophie Strammel, who was on the podcast in episode 3, she had a hat trick for the Irish. Warroad over Bemidji 9-3 last Tuesday. Benilde-St Margaret's over Champlain Park Coon Rapids 8-2. BSM outshot the Bluebirds 44-24, and I think Benilde finally looked like the Benilde that we think they can be, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that we've talked about. Yeah, and they're, one of those teams, like, they have, that firepower from the blue line and the offense. So it sounds like they've gotten some of their kinks out and they're playing some of their better hockey right now.
Yeah, Kendall Hassler, the senior, had 2 goals for the Red Knights. She will be on this episode shortly as the victim of our PK player profile. So she's coming up in just a couple of minutes. Also coming up, let's talk this week, Winnie. Holy Angels, 2 tough tests for Holy Angels there at Orono on Tuesday and at Mount West Tonka Southwest Christian on Thursday. We're going to see what the Stars are made of this week.
Yeah, and they're a team that these are going to be 2 big matchups, and it's going to kind of it's a test on where they're right now and where they need to be at the end of the season for them to, get to that state tournament.
Yep. Here's a preview, I think, of a section final. Apple Valley at Rosemont on Tuesday. Michaela Moran for Apple Valley, Sophie Strammel for Rosemont, 2 teams that know each other well. I think this will be the section final. Should be a good game this week.
Yeah, and it's one of those games, like I was talking about, it's kind of the battle of the South, right? The big South schools. And like you said, it's going to come down to probably goaltending. And you got Michaela Moran, you got Sophie Strammel matchup. And I think otherwise these teams are pretty evenly matched. So it should be for a good game.
Always a fun game. Lakeville South visits Lakeville North on Thursday night. North down a bit this season. South probably the favorite, but that should be a good matchup as well.
Yeah, and obviously, with these kids knowing each other and a long history of playing with and against each other, I'm sure it always makes for a very good rivalry. So I'm sure both teams will be bringing their A game for that one.
If you're not doing anything Saturday, you can either go to Minnetonka, you can go to Victoria, you can go to Andover, you can go to Dodge County, you can go to Coon Rapids, you name it. We kind of listed these off, but Edina at Minnetonka, Hill Murray at Holy Family, Centennial Spring Lake Park at Andover. I would say the best game, in my opinion, the one I would like to see the most is Centennial Spring Lake Park at Andover on Saturday.
Yeah, and it's one of those things. We talked about the Battle of the South is going to be the Battle of the North, and who's the best and who's at the top of the hill right now during this part of the season. And both teams are going to be coming in. Centennial, Spring Lake Park, they've been just, kind of having a really good start to the season, and Andover is coming along. So this is kind of where they can kind of get back to the top.
Well, I went to the PWHL game last night, the home opener. Minnesota Frost lost 3-2 in overtime. But I just wanted to ask you about, it's always fun to look at former high school players and how they do. And I know that you know Lee Steckline well. She played for Roseville, your alma mater. I just look at her. I've watched her over the years. I can't remember the last time she made a mistake. I mean, this woman is really unbelievable, isn't she? And someone who's a D
for a lot of years. Yeah. D is a game of mistakes, and Lee is one of those kids that even when she was young, being her coach, it's like she's just so dependable. She makes the right play. She makes the easy play. I always tell people when you're playing hockey, it's not really a difficult game. It's actually pretty easy if you just make the right plays. And Lee Steckline's one of those players. And I'm sure, I used to talk to Brad Frost, Coach Frost, and he'd say the same thing. He's like, she still hasn't made a mistake. I go, yeah, she probably won't.
Yeah, she probably won't.
And it's awesome to see, even today, she's, still one of the best players in the whole world. So it's fun, and it's pretty cool that she was a Roseville kid from my alma mater. Yeah. So
last question, I'm gonna put you on the spot. How cool is it for you to see not only the college women, the PWHL women, so many of them have come through your program at OS? It's got to feel pretty great to watch them.
Yeah, it's pretty neat just because I know when I was playing 25, 30 years ago, there's a lot of people, a lot of guys that I played against, right, that we're like, oh, Winnie was one of the only girls. And so for me, it's pretty incredible that you see all these girls playing now, right? And having all these opportunities that I never did. And it's, a tribute to the support that the people out there and the fans have had for the sport and women's hockey, and the respect that it's gotten over the last 25 years. So for me personally, I just love the fact that all these girls get to play hockey, and I've been able to, be a piece of that for some of these kids that have been able to do it.
Winnie, thanks for your time this week. We will talk again
Yes, no,
next
thank you.
week. All right. See ya.
All right.
All right, Kendall Hassler, senior forward for the Red Knights of Benilde-St Margaret. She's on the episode now. Kendall, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for coming on. Talk to me about your team. Winnie and I have talked about this for the last several weeks. We think you are one of the very best teams out there, one of the deepest teams, but sometimes, I'm telling you, we're scratching our heads. You get shut out by Maple Grove 3-0, and you tie Orono 2-2 after going, and I'm going to say this slowly, 1 for 11 on the power play. Kenny, what is happening? But I mean, you guys are figuring it out, I think, the last week or so. But there's been some odd results from the Red Knights. What's going on?
Yeah, so we're a faster team, and like there's a lot of people who haven't played with each other. Like my line, I've never really played with them before, and I can say that about some of the other lines. And then the power play is just completely new for both of our power plays, and we've been getting switched around trying to see what works. And sometimes we go a little too complicated on power play, but we're getting better at power play because I think we're just making it more simple and just trying to find the easier plays.
Yeah. And there's no doubt that early in the season, these games, they count, but they don't matter as much, so it's good to get familiar with everyone and work your way through the kinks. And honestly, in all seriousness, you really are a deep team. And I think you'll be very good down the stretch. What do you think you need to do to get ready for, when you look at it, what appears to be probably another battle in the Section 6AA title game with the dreaded Hornets of Edina? What does Benilde need to do to be ready this time?
I think just being having our depth is going to be a big thing because I feel that they don't have as much depth as we do. So I think that's going to be a big advantage, not having to roll a short bench in some ways. And I think just being ready in the sense that every section game is pretty much a special teams kind of game. So just having both special teams down and just being able to understand it's not going to be perfect and just working from that.
Before we get to the PK player, your tough questions, the killer questions that we throw at everybody, Mankato, you're headed there next year. Talk to me about the recruiting process and how you chose Minnesota State-Mankato.
The recruiting process was fun, but at the same time, everyone can say that, but it was just kind of just going through the process and just kind of seeing which type of school environment and which type of hockey environment would be the best for me. So I was narrowing it down throughout, and then got on campus for my visit at Minnesota State, and it just clicked with me. I was there's the feeling you get when you get on campus and you're this is where I want to be. I got that feeling, and the coaches are amazing, the players are amazing, campus, it's just a bunch of things that I enjoy about the school and just being close to home.
And, right, you have this really solid, strong class of 2025 grads from Minnesota. Michaela Moran, Apple Valley, Sophie Strammel from Rosemont, Mercury Bischoff from Grand Rapids. There's just a number of them. So I think when you look at in-state recruiting, Minnesota State-Mankato did a really nice job with the 2025 class.
Yeah, no, we're all so excited to go down.
All right, I know what else you're excited for. You are excited for the PK player profile. 50 seconds, Kendall, to answer 5 questions. If you successfully answer all 5 in the time allotted, you kill off the PK. Are you ready?
Okay, so short, quick answers here.
Yep, here we go. All right, number one, what's the most important piece of hockey equipment and why?
Your skates. Can't do anything without your skates.
What nickname do you prefer, Turtle or Kenny?
Turtle. Feel like that one just fits me a little bit better.
What is the best birthday present you've ever received, and when did you receive it?
Oh boy. Probably 16th birthday. The car, just the car,
Nice, nice. The State High School League decides to allow a transfer portal in high school. Which one player would you want to transfer to Benilde and why?
Probably Mackenzie Jones. Really close friends with her.
Would you rather finally beat Edina in the section final or drive your entire team's sweaty hockey socks in your car in the middle of the summer following STP?
Oh, easily beat Edina.
I left the toughest question for last. Kendall, thank you. You successfully killed off the PK. Appreciate you coming on. Have a good season.
Thank you.
Well, we started this podcast because we feel there's such a gap between the interest in girls high school hockey and the credible media coverage of the players and the teams. And I think it's really a vicious cycle. If you don't have good coverage, if you can't find the stories of the players and the personalities anywhere, then it's hard for interest to grow. So our next guest is one of the very few reporters out there who has covered the girls' high school game and done so very, very well. Sydney Wolf spent the last 3 years writing for the Rink Live and is on the verge of launching a new website called Clean Sheet Hockey. Sydney, thanks for coming on, and give us a brief preview of what we'll find on your new website and when we'll see it go live.
Yeah, for sure. So unfortunately, the Rink Live, not really a thing anymore, but enjoyed my time there. And I'm kind of trying to take what I was doing there and put it on a new website because I made too many, inroads and connections with people to just stop reporting. So getting excited to launch a new website and some social media pages here should be up. We're recording this in early December, so hoping to have it up here within a week or so. Like you said, it's Clean Sheet Hockey. It'll be cleansheethockey.com, and most of the socials are up already. I'm just waiting to post some pictures and stuff, and almost all of those, I believe, are at Clean Sheet HKY. So hoping to have all that stuff up here soon and hoping to keep on covering girls and boys high school and juniors college, all that good stuff here coming up soon.
Well, awesome. Well, we're a month into the girls' high school hockey season, and it's never too early to speculate on how this will all end and who will be in sections. So this week, I'm hoping that you can help me walk through section by section in Class AA and talk about the favorites for the finals. And we'll begin section 1AA. I mean, last season's winner was Northfield. The Raiders, I would say, aren't the team they were a year ago. The graduation of Puppy and McCaution, to me, I think the favorites have to be Lakeville South and Farmington. What are your thoughts, Sydney, on Section 1AA this season?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, Northfield lost some of their key players from last year, but they're still a really good team. I wouldn't say that, they're out of the race at all. They still got some good wins right now. They got Mia Miller, they got Macy Mueller playing well right now. So I still think they're definitely a contender out there in 1AA. But like you said, I think Farmington's got, some potential this year. Lakeville South always has some potential. Some of the other teams in there, looking at records, and I don't know, a couple teams that are up and down or some okay schedules. But I'd say for me, Northfield is going to be tough to beat again this year, even with losing some players. But Farmington, maybe for me, might be the sneaky, maybe not sneaky to some people, but also a really solid team.
Section 2AA, Minnetonka, I would say, has been the bride and Holy Family the bridesmaid in Section 2AA. The Skippers have defeated Holy Family in the last 4 Section 2A championship games. Eden Prairie was the last team to actually reach the finals in this section. That was 2019-20. Is there any reason to think it won't be another Tonka Holy Family matchup for the 5th straight year? What do you think?
Yeah, I unfortunately don't think it's probably going to be anybody except those two. It's going to be interesting because I think Holy Family is definitely a really good team. They got a lot of really good players right now. They got some good wins. They got a good record right now. But obviously, beating Tonka is definitely really, really hard. They have a ton of Division I commits on the team. They got a good record. They got good goaltending. They got kind of a little bit of good everything. So obviously, I'm not just going to say, they're going to cruise through everybody. But Holy Family and Minnetonka, I don't really see any reason why it's not going to be those two again this year.
Section 3AA, Rosemont, the defending champs from this section with, I would say, a somewhat surprising run last season, upsetting Lakeville North in the semis and then defeating Apple Valley in the final to reach the state tournament. I believe North is down this season. I think Apple Valley, that's me personally, I think Apple Valley's the favorite with Rosemont and Cretin-Durham Hall not far behind. What's your assessment of Section 3AA?
Yeah, 3AA is always kind of funky here the last few seasons. It's always kind of a fun, chaotic section. I always like watching those in the games because they can always get kind of crazy. But I think you're kind of spot on there with Apple Valley. I think just based on their record right now, they got Michaela Moran, who's definitely going to be one of the top Miss Hockey finalists this year on the team. They got Finley Angfer, who's, an up-and-coming prospect right now, who I'm hearing more and more about every day. So I'd say I'd lean towards them. But, it's 3AA, you can never count out anybody. There's still Rosemont, you got Cretin, you got Hastings, has some interesting scores so far. I don't know. It's kind of always pretty crazy. You can't really count out any of the teams, but it would be fun to see Apple Valley and those girls get through this year.
Section 4AA, Hill Murray, the Pioneers, the defending champions, finally making it to state last season after losing back-to-back finals to Gentry Academy. Hill Murray has lost arguably the best goalie in the state last season, Grace Zahn. She graduated. They also lost, I would say, one of the most tenacious goal scorers in high school hockey, Chloe Barine. She moved on. She's at St. Thomas. The Pioneers still have a ton of firepower, but I do think they're going to have to get past what is a very balanced, a very deep, and a talented, feisty Woodbury team. What do you think about Section 4AA?
Yeah, exactly kind of what you said. Hill is definitely going to be the favorite this year with just so many good players. Even though they lost a lot of really great players, they got a bunch more on the team still right now. So they, I think, definitely are the favorite right now. But Woodbury, really, really good team. They got some really good players. When I talked to some of them earlier before the season started, I want to say a couple weeks before that, I know they didn't have a ton of players on the roster on defense quite yet before the season started, but they're doing really good right now. I think they're 5-0-1, so they're definitely a tough team to get past.
Section 5AA, I would say toughest section in the state right now, or at least the most up in the air with, I think, 4 teams that have very real shots at making it. Maple Grove, the defending champions, Centennial Spring Lake Park, who I have found to be incredibly impressive this season so far. Champlain Park, Coon Rapids, one of the best lines in the first lines in the state. And then I wouldn't count out Roseville Matamidi. They're playing good too. So I think this section is really up in the air.
Yeah, there's a lot of really good, solid teams in this section, always really competitive, a lot of really good talent in here. But Centennial Spring Lake Park, they're rocking that 5-0 record right now. They got some really nice wins. Beat Minnetonka. That's a good one. They beat some other really good teams. Beat Maple Grove. They beat Rosemount. They got some good wins right now, and they got some really, really good players. So seems like that's going to be the team to beat this year. But 5AA, like you said, that's always a really tough one.
Like Section 2AA with Tonka and Holy Family, Section 6AA has a very similar story. Edina, the defending section and state champs. The Hornets have defeated Benilde-St Margaret in the last 4 section finals. I don't see anyone else really competing with these two, likely setting up a 5th straight section final between the Hornets and the Red Knights. What do you think?
Yeah, I definitely think it's going to be the same of between Benilde and Edina. It's, again, going to be interesting to see if Benilde can try to pull it off this year and get past Edina. But over the last year or two, I definitely have had a lot of success in just saying it's going to be Edina. I've learned to not pick against Edina, even though I love a lot of the players on Benilde. They have a ton of really good players. I think I've interviewed like half their team at this point. So they got a ton of really great players on their team. But Edina, I can never pick against them. Hornets always a tough squad, but that'll be a fun section final for sure if it is just Benilde Edina again this year.
Section 7AA, the Andover Huskies, 7 straight section championships, which is kind of unreal when you think about it. Forest Lake I would say an improving team. Grand Rapids is solid, but I don't know. I just don't see anyone stopping Andover doing it again. Especially you've got this senior class of Mac Jones, Courtney Little, Maya Engler, Hannah Christensen, Hannah Olson. If they put their mind to it, I'm pretty sure we're going to see them at the state tournament. And I think I've watched them play already once this season. If they play with heart and they're physical, they're a tough team to beat.
Yeah, I'd love to see another team try to challenge them this year. Like you said, of Forest Lake, they've got 5 wins right now. They're 5-0, so that's really cool to see. And Grand Rapids Greenway would love to see Mercury just play like a crazy game, another definite Miss Hockey finalist this year, and just have her go off and play a crazy game in sections. But yeah, Andover's just really deep. They got a ton of talent. I don't know if this is going to be the year that anybody's going to upset them at all in 7AA.
Last but not least, Section 8AA. This one, I would say, definitely up in the air. The defending champions from Roseau are off to a strong start this season with wins against Orono and section rival Bemidji. The Rams, they'll only beat Bemidji 5-4 in overtime. That was on November 19th, and Bemidji outshot Roseau in that game 39-19. So I think it's tight. And then you throw Moorhead into the mix. I really like Moorhead. They're well coached by Ryan Kraft. They're deep. I would say it's a 3-team race in Section 8AA. What do you think?
Yeah, I would agree with you 100%. Roseau, I'd be selfishly pulling for a little bit just as a St. Cloud State fan, since they now have 3 St. Cloud State commits, which is absolutely insane. But that's going to be tough because Roseau Moorhead, that's always a really great game. And now Bemidji's starting to heat up. They got some really good players too. So I don't know. Roseau maybe a slight early edge in my opinion, but you definitely have tough games ahead with Moorhead. They're always really good. And Bemidji not going to be a easy out either this year.
Last year I remember talking to some people about kind of the field that made it to the state tournament. All 8 teams there were very good. We didn't have any huge, massive blowout, and like we've had in the past, if you look back 10 years ago. When we go over this list again this season, I really think we're going to have another really strong field that at the state tournament once sections is over.
Yeah, I really hope for that too. And I know last year it was a little better and Class A too, just the parity and all that stuff. So hoping this year too, we get just some really good games. Nobody really likes to watch those huge blowouts in the quarterfinals or anything like that. But I think this year, yeah, I don't know if I have for sure number one Sydney's. This team is definitely winning state type of team. There's a lot of good teams, but nobody really seems to be, I don't know, in my mind, taking for sure this team is going all the way. There's definitely, favorites. I probably have a top 5 or so maybe, but I don't really have anybody that's like, yep, this team is for sure going all the way to the final type of team.
Sydney, thanks for your time. Thanks for insight. Would love to have you back on either next week or the following, talk about go through section by section in Class Single A. Are you willing to do that for us?
Yeah, for sure. Single A is going to be fun this year too.
All right. Sydney Wolf, formerly of the Rink Live, about to launch a new website called Clean Sheet Hockey, cleansheethockey.com. Sid, thanks for your time, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right, awesome. Sounds good. Thanks for having me on.
And thanks again to Sydney Wolf, Kendall Hassler, and Winny Brodt Brown for their time this week. Look for our weekly rankings and our weekly recap and preview of the key games on our website, girlshshockey.com, and our Instagram page, Girls HS Hockey. Episode 5, Season 1 of the Girls High School Hockey Report podcast is in the books. Please share this episode far and wide. You can find it on Spotify, Apple, and YouTube. Thanks to Cy Dotson from Triumph Pictures for producing and editing, and thank you for listening. Hopefully I'll see you around a rink real soon.